What is the life of a private client lawyer like?
I've had, discussions like this on private jets. These are typically very sensitive, very emotional conversations where people cry in meetings sometimes.
You yourself were very active in the Godrej
Yes.
situation. In our lifetime, we've seen the Ambani matter play out.
My father was a mediator.
How much does equity partner will make?
Top end equity would be 8, 10, 12 CR plus.
There are family related matters which get in the way of a clean succession, where let's say there is dispute about which asset will go to which family member. And there's a lot of debate. Obviously, like in our lifetime, we've seen the Ambani matter play out.
My father was a mediator.
He was a very legendary situation that played out there. You yourself were very active in the Godrej situation.
Yeah.
And given that there is some information about that in the public domain, how did a case like that pan out? Like, what does the family do? They come to you with the problem statement, and then you get involved and walk them through a solution.
So, as a confession, I would say I'm actually a shadow disputes lawyer. I'm a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing. So I may pretend to be this warm and cuddly private client lawyer, but in my heart of heart, I would say I'm actually a disputes lawyer. So I would spend most of my, day job today actually doing family dispute work. There's a very broad umbrella of things which happen under that. So there's sort of
Very depressing. Rishabh.
no, I love it. I love it. Families fight and we can, have a resolution done together. So it actually excites me, thinking strategically. Every word, every full stop matters. What you don't say also matters. I think I love that whole, that whole dynamic in a family dispute. So we went through our own dispute as well. So I've been in the heart of it with my own family. So
And Amarchand Mangaldas separated into two parts.
yes, it's about 9 years today. Will be 10th anniversary next year in May. So we've gone through it ourselves in my active business lifetime as well. So on the Godrej thing, as you rightly said, we were in the heart of it, acted for Mr. Adi Godrej, Firoz Shah, Nisa, Tanya, etc. On their side of the whole dispute. And the interesting thing is that it's the only dispute I can think of where both sides are actually equally happy, equally unhappy. So I think, everybody got what they wanted and also left something on the table for the other side as, a bit of generosity as well. So I think it's a great case study about how that whole thing played out. And, without breaching any client confidentiality issues in that, I say the learnings for me have been, quite a few, what I would implement other similar family situations. One I would say is the importance of strategic IP. So historically, we've seen families don't look at IP as a very important asset when the business is set up and the founders, at least, his 20s or 30s, IP is owned in his personal name, owned in some random holding company, operating businesses, some other entity. And this whole structure, given Godrej brand is such a valuable brand, really brought home the value of the important strategic asset, both for the brand today and the brand in the future. So in future disputes you will look at today, we would spend more and more time understanding the value of the brand in the future and what the family should do today to make sure that that goes properly. And this was a complex case with, I think, 7 listed companies. So we had that whole SEBI dynamic over there. There were antitrust issues with the, transfer of business to one party to the other. Land was a major concern given Vikhroli, 30,000 acres at India's most valuable real estate today. Tax was a major concern given NRIs and the family, given that it's a tax neutral transaction wanted to achieve. So many variables in play over here. And I would say it's a great example of what a big law firm can do in situations like this. So it's not only a private client matter, it was a tax matter, IP matter, competition matter, finance matter, litigation matter. So it were about 40 people from the firm involved in different aspects of it. So it really brought on the value of having a full service platform to service something like this.
And all of this new talent which is coming into the firm, do they become part owners of the firm, or are they on compensations which are salaries and incentives? How does that work?
Good question. So different firms have different kind of comp and ownership model. I would say in a firm like ours, it's a two-tier structure. You would have your salary partners who would be paid kind of a high fixed salary plus a variable depending on performance and certain specified parameters. At the higher end, about equity, out of about 200 partners, I would say about 40, 50-ish would be on the equity who really own the firm in that way. And they're basically paid as profit.
And like without going to specifics of CAM, but let's say how much does a equity partner at a firm of the size of CAM versus a non-equity partner at the firm of the size of CAM will make?
I would say in generalized, industry terms, let's say a year, 2 or 3 partners, just generally in the ecosystem, let's say in working in a larger firm, take home would be something like 1.25, 1.65. There would be split between fixed and variable.
Crores.
Crores. And
$1 million is where my
no, not million. We were desperate to get to that, but no. 1.65-ish, I would say top end for a 2-3 year partner.
Okay.
Now, if you're going to kind of a year, 6, 7, 8 kind of partner, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 in that kind of a ballpark. Top end equity would be kind of much higher, would be 8, 10, 12 CR plus. That would be the kind of the senior most partners in India today. Non-family, non-founders would be in that comp range.
And let's say if a lawyer is starting off at, I hesitate to call it bottom of the pyramid in terms of a fresh lawyer, but let's say how many of them graduate to becoming equity partners over a period of time? What's the pyramid like?
So we are about 1,100 lawyers in our system, only about 200-ish are partners.
Okay.
In a year, I would say we take 65, 70 freshers, straight from law school, out of which in an annual promotion batch, 7, 8 become partners, 10 become partners. The equity would be 10% of that. So it's a very narrow and sharp pyramid coming to the top.
What is the life of a private client lawyer like? Like, is it like the Harvey Specter of Suits?
Highways. Nobody makes that much.
Exciting conversations happening over drinks and so on, or is it like in boardrooms like these, or a lot of it is happening behind the scenes?
Kind of behind the scenes. I've had, discussions like this on private jets in Dubai, in London. Some happens kind of, midnight to, 12 a.m. where they will discuss when the families, not around. Some are, you have to sign NDA before they even, discuss with you, leave your phones outside the room, etc. So these are typically very sensitive, very emotional conversations where people cry in meetings sometimes, or where people, confess the deepest secrets to you in the meeting. A lot of dirty laundry gets aired in these conversations as well. So it's a very requirement of good empathy and high empathy in a situation like this. It's not the technical solution, but also the hearing what the families, really concerned about and finding solutions which work for them.
Rishabh, this whole concept where a lawyer gets in the middle of what is essentially a private matter is a practice that I recently learned is called a private client practice. What do you think, at which point does a family need a private lawyer? What is it about the amount of wealth that they have, or is it about a typical family situation when they should consider getting somebody on their side?
So the way I kind of see what a private client lawyer does is kind of 3 themes: create, protect, and transition. So on the create side of the private client world, you're creating structures for families, creating a family constitution, a family trust, you're creating a succession plan, you're creating a will, and that's more on the kind of estate planning, wealth management side. On the bigger picture, you're creating business models with them, giving opinions on, touchy areas of the law, grades of the law, helping create the value to actually create a future family business. So create is a very fundamental part of a private client lawyerism ecosystem. On the protect side, I would say you're protecting families from themselves in a way. Seeing like we talk about family disputes right now, great lawyer can actually help and sort of prevent those for the future. We can protect against things like divorces in the family, protect against creditors coming after them, government coming after them, tax leakage, planning from future, eventualities, etc. So protect is also a more midlife problem for a lot of these families that they come to us in generation 2, 3, 4 sometimes also. Creation already has happened in the past. Protection is a very critical part of what they want our help in today. And in transition, I would say kind of peaceful and unpeaceful as well. So when a patriarch is, 60, 70 making a plan, what comes after him. So on the wealth management part, passing on, money and shares is one thing, but passing on your corporate legacy. We spend lots of time on that as well. So the right successor, the grooming plan, the mentorship plan, working with his, future board, future shareholder, etc. So that's a very softer family governance dynamic conversation over there. So we are deeply engaged in that whole ecosystem. And in the more contentious side, like Godrej, for example, helping families on a dispute situation where one family is fighting for the wealth and we're defending or attacking depending which role we have. So these are the kind of macro summary of what a private client lawyer does, mota mota.
Rishabh, in these kind of cases, there are two family members talking to each other through two sets of lawyers, probably one which
Which is
is
a
on
good
one.
thing, which is a good thing.
And why do you say that?
I think when families talk to each other, that whole baggage is there of the past. You said something to me when I was 5 years old, taking that revenge out on you today, versus having a kind of dispassionate third party lawyer who's fighting your corner, and somebody like my dad or like Zia Modi on the other side. You're talking solution, not talking, previous history. So to resolve disputes like this, we need somebody of that caliber to sort this out. And ultimately, it's the role you want from your lawyer, saying that, okay, look, I think this is not something worth fighting over. Let's give this up, but let's focus on this aspect. So that judgment call for the family on what you should fight for will come from a lawyer who knows your heart and your soul inside out.
One of the other big disputes that has happened in India is this whole issue of Tatas versus Shapoorji Pallonji. And with the recent passing away
We
of,
also acted for one of the Tata companies in that, so we're on the Tata side for the dispute.
and how does that kind of an issue get dealt with? Because there are multiple listed companies.
Correct.
There are two sort of families which were at one time close, but they're not one family. They were like two separate sets of individuals there.
Correct. So I think the kind of interesting factor there is that now both patriarchs have passed away. Cyrus missed in accident, I think, 2 years ago, and Mr. Tata a few days ago. And also when Mr. Mistry passed away, his stake is kind of, I think, frozen in limbo in Tata Sons today. It's unmonetizable. They tried to, take a pledge on the shares many years ago, but it got kind of shot down in this whole dispute over there. Who can sell it to, who will buy it. So I think that stake is kind of frozen time until a bigger settlement happens between the Tata family and the Mistry family. The nitty-gritty facts, I don't know, this is my kind of layman understanding of what's happening over there. And the chunk of Tata actually is owned by charity. So people like you and me and India own Tata Group today. Ultimately, charities own the bulk of the shares over there. So it's a more complex, very unique situation in India.
And when you think about like what are the ways to do succession planning, which is essentially transferring money from one generation to another.
Yeah.
There is a trust. You can write out a will. What are the use cases around it? Like which context do you actually need a trust?
Yeah, so I think trust is one tool in it, but I think the question of succession planning is more in the context of transferring corporate control. If you're a founder in your 60s, you run a business your whole life, you've grown it to where it is today. So passing on the wealth is one dynamic out of it, but where we see people spend the most time today actually is on is my successor the right choice to run the business? So again, if you ask me this question many years ago, it would be the default option would be my eldest son would run the business. So would be an automatic no-brainer here.
Yeah.
But today, we are seeing professional management come into family-run businesses. We are seeing families take more of a backseat in running of the business. They may be more involved at the board level, but not in the day-to-day, going to factory floors and the like. So that trend has been a kind of big one driving succession conversations today. And then as part of it, people looking at, putting in place structures which A can help them from a long-term kind of wealth creation preservation perspective, and then two, just make administrative control also easier. And as opposed to having your share spread across, 10, 12 family members, 5% each, somebody can, get divorced and lose that whole thing. Somebody can go insolvent and lose the whole thing. So all those risk factors put together, I think people realize that trust is a really good way to kind of insulate the whole thing from risk.
And Rishabh, when let's say you meet a family which is in a need of a private client lawyer, they don't specifically know which are the areas that they need you for. So some of these are conversations that you are driving.
Correct.
And I think like in most cases, these are not very happy conversations to engage in, right? You're talking about mortality, you're talking about divorce when everything is peaceful, etc. Right? What is the process that a private client lawyer goes through when they meet a potential client?
Yes, I would say R is a very kind of, what's the right word, push up pull model, where a lot of word of mouth is how these things happen. I've done a great matter for one friend, talk to their best friend, talk to, come to Rishabh, will do your structure. So very few cases are you the one going to a family and say, let me do your prenup or your will or your trust for you. They kind of come to us. So it's a very, I guess, pull model into CAM that way. So we've been very blessed with that situation. So many clients act for today,
Hmm.
acting with them for the last, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years as part of the family business you worked for in generation one downwards. So that's been a good thing that's going in our favor here.
But let's say our family is talking about proactively in happy times, thinking about what can happen when things go wrong.
So I think so. A lot of the conversations today are actually families are happy, things are going well.
Hmm.
So things like, who will be the future MD in the company, directors on the board who will come, what's the sequence of directors, how will shares be passed on, how enjoyment of wealth happen, what will the compensation structure in the family look like, can you sell the business, can you pledge the business, how will charity happen in the business, etc. So that's happening very actively today. And I would say if you ignore my family dispute work I'm doing,
Hmm.
a lot of it actually is on this kind of stuff and the preventive documentation structures in place today
Mhm.
prevent disputes in the future.
Rishabh, your own family, was is known for being involved in some of the most sensitive cases. Also, in a situation, advisor to some of India's wealthiest individuals themselves. How has been the journey of CAM in itself? When it started, was it like a single person firm or was it a group of people? I know the family is right now quite actively involved in the business.
Correct. So the growth has been in the last 30 years, I would say.
Mhm.
In 1994, when my grandfather Suresh Shroff passed away, our entire firm was in this kind of boardrooms I've set up here. Earlier, we were more than 20 people, including secretaries, drivers, staff, etc. Today, we're about 1100 people, 1994, 2004. So, a lot of this also happened when the economy opened up around, late, early to mid 90s or so. And more recently, I would say in the 2000s as well. So our three engines continue to be our corporate, banking and disputes team. But now we have, very high-end boutique from within the firm like our private client or IP or tax, etc. So the growth has been recent, but kind of staggering in that way.
And given that these are such long gestations, like I know in case of private equity, lawyers get paid in some cases on
The whole
success.
deal is like a 7-year life cycle typically.
And so how do you get paid? Like, do you get paid at success, at the completion of it? Do you get paid along the way or a combination of both?
So how we kind of see private client work is not on a standalone basis. So
Hmm.
our clients would be large, multi-generational family businesses or large businesses who we do other things with as well.
Sure.
I'm doing the IPO for the client. I'm also doing the succession plan.
Sure.
I'm doing a PE round for them. Also doing the corporate succession plan for them. So we don't see it as a standalone practice and a P&L. It's actually part of a bigger corporate umbrella. Even we for our P&L, we fall under the cooperative. We're not a standalone P&L by itself. So my success is more how the corporate team also does well as part of the private client origination.
And when, like, your own firm, which is, I'd say, one of the most legendary firms in the legal fraternity, Amarchand Mangaldas, decided to split into two parts. How did you carry out that conversation? Because you are the lawyers.
Correct.
Were you representing yourself? Was there an intermediary in the
We had three mediators. We had Harish Salve, the senior counsel. We had Nimesh Kampani of JM Financial. And we had Justice Sri Krishna. I would say the good thing about our thing was the whole thing was finished within 6 months. On November 14, the court case was filed in Bombay High Court, the probate petition. May 9, 2015, the settlement was signed. May 11, 2015, CAM was born. End to end within 6 months, which is unheard of in any dispute in India. Godrej thing you mentioned took about 6-7 years. So I think the speed is important over there, which came by entrusting our three medias to take decisions for us, what is worth fighting over, what is not worth fighting over. And ultimately, both sides, my dad and my uncle, really wanted the business more than anything else. So I think, we said we'll go our own separate ways, divide the business into regional lines, and let's just move on in life.
Rishabh, your own family has been around probably the sort of most active listed promoters. You've seen sort of companies inside out. How has that shaped your own investment patterns? Because sometimes you have too much information also.
Yeah, so most wealth managers hate me, I would say, because we don't do any equity. So we as a family, maybe it's a very conservative.
Not even mutual funds. Like,
Mutual funds are fine. It's not direct equity in my
Okay.
name. So we have no PMS in our name, no direct stock in my name. So as a family, we are ultra conservative there. So there is literally between my dad and me, the family, there's zero equity whatsoever. And it's a kind of policy call that we've taken. I don't want to make money by, stock market, speculation. I want to make money by my business really doing well. So we don't take any equity. We sit in lots of, UPSI in our servers in the firm.
UPSI is
Unpublished by sensitive information. So no insider trading allegation will ever come against the family over here.
Yeah.
So very, very strict in that way. So what we do is things like, mutual funds, SIPs. We have a lot of debt funds. We have real estate. We are doing like alternates like art, for example. But equity, stock market stuff, zero.
And when it comes to the alternative assets like art, have you sort of built a taste for it, or
Yes,
how does that work?
actually, as it so happens, my wife is a art historian, which is also a lawyer, but her degree actually is in art history. So she's kind of become the de facto art curator for the family. So we are, doing art for the office you see around here, for the home, etc.
Yeah.
And it's not for investment, more for aesthetics and enjoyment. So we love art. We collect it for many decades, and we continue doing so.
This has been a fascinating conversation, Rishabh. I think I've learned a lot. And what I love is the content that you yourself are putting out. So that's interesting. Thank you so much, Rishabh.
Thank you so much.